Busted.
The reviews are in.
Awesome.
You wanted more Joe Concha. And we heard you. More Joe. More show.
We're talking to you. Under promise and over deliver.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11 on 77 WABC.
Jimmy Kimmel no longer tries to be funny. Not that he ever really was.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11.
Democrats defending cocaine coming into the country.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, Tom Homan, the border czar, is en route to Minneapolis. Tomorrow, he's going to be there on the ground. He is the new head honcho in charge there. Greg Bavino, who has been the commander on the ground, is going to be leaving. And also a number of agents there will be leaving. Not all of them, but some of them will be leaving. And Tom Homan is set to meet with Mayor Jacob Frey and also probably Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. There's a lot of developments happening tonight, and of course, all of it surrounding that horrible shooting over the weekend. Very tragic, very sad. It breaks my heart when I see what happened in that situation. At least as far as we know, we still don't know a lot of things. And I want to hear your thoughts tonight as to what you think happened in this case, who you think is to blame, and also the rhetoric. My goodness. You heard from Tim Walz in the last 24 hours. He's describing ICE agents there essentially as if they're going after Anne Frank. That's the phrasing he's used, like they're Gestapo going after Anne Frank in World War II. The comparison is so reprehensible that even the Holocaust Museum came out and condemned that remark by Walz, saying it's completely inappropriate to make such an analogy, and it is. Also, the comments you've seen from Jacob Frey right after the shooting took place. So many details we still don't know, and yet they have vilified ICE. You've even heard Tim Walz say that you shouldn't call ICE law enforcement. Are you kidding me? These are federal agents who are trying to work hard under very difficult situations. They're getting their hotels busted into. They're getting bottles thrown at them. They're getting a lot of things happening to them, and Tim Walz can't even give them the courtesy of calling them law enforcement agents. And a lot of that rhetoric from both of those two individuals that I mentioned, Walz and Frey, certainly is fueling the flames and getting the tensions riding even higher. It is a tinderbox tonight in Minneapolis, but let's see and let's hope that things will calm down now that earlier today, President Trump also spoke with Tim Walz, and we're told also spoke to Jacob Frey just a few hours later. So maybe this communication will hopefully get Tim Walz and Jacob Frey to buck up and start allowing local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE. It's horrible what happened to this 37-year-old ICU nurse in a VA hospital. I hear good things about the guy from his family, and it's really sad. But I also will tell you, you can't bring a loaded gun to a protest at a time where things are especially unruly, and you can't interject yourself. I am all for Second Amendment rights, guys, but you don't bring a loaded gun and 2 full magazines and then interject yourself and get in a cop's face as they're trying to arrest somebody. And then you've got a gun? What are they supposed to think in this moment where they're being attacked and vilified left and right? You should stand back and let the operation go forward. You don't impede operations and interject yourself. And that is exactly what Alex Pretti did. Doesn't necessarily mean he should have died. We'll do an investigation and see what happened. But for these people to say it's cold-blooded murder and nothing happened, you're out there where people are spitting at you and throwing things at you, shooting at you, a lot of things. and then suddenly this guy comes and like starts getting in your face and pushes you. You don't do that. You don't lay a hand on law enforcement. That's what it looks like in the video to me. We don't know if the first shot that was fired was by law enforcement or was it an accidental one from his gun. Did his gun discharge? Pretti's gun? There's stories that it had a history of discharging. And then law enforcement hears a gun going off and then they see a gun on the guy. What are they supposed to think? He just got in their face and he's with a whole bunch of these protesters. So there's a lot of questions here, and I want to hear from you tonight where you think this case needs to go. And I feel sad and heartbroken that Alex Pretti and also Renee Good recently lost their lives in Minneapolis. It's terrible. It's horrible, and it should not happen in America. But on the other hand, you can't be blocking law enforcement. You can't get in their face. You can't interject. You can't intercede. If you see law enforcement, you stand back and you let them do their job, even if you don't have a gun. But if you have a loaded gun, even more so. What if you're a loony kazoonie who's about to take the gun and open fire on them all? There are so many questions tonight. And I have a lot of sympathy for law enforcement, but Donald Trump and his team, we were talking earlier today with Bill O'Reilly. He was saying Kash Patel and others need to get a handle on this situation before it gets really bad. Are we on the verge of an insurrection in this country? And maybe we're already there in some parts, especially these, quote, so-called sanctuary cities. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go first. Here is Caroline Leavitt, and this is what she had to say. She came out in the White House press briefing today and spoke on behalf of the president.
There has no doubt been selective outrage by the liberal biased media in picking and choosing victims and highlighting their stories. And as I've said, President Trump does not want any Americans to lose their lives in the streets of America and in American communities across the country. He believes what happened on Saturday is a tragedy, but every life is equal to President Trump, and that's why the lives of Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray continue to matter to him and be an utmost priority to him to this very day. And it's unfortunate that we did not see the same type of sensationalist media coverage over the tragic deaths of those innocent American women and girls across the country as we are in the wake of this tragedy that took place on Saturday.
And then Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said, yes, Americans do have the right to bear arms, but...
Director Kash Patel said in a Sunday interview, quote, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest. Does the president believe the Second Amendment rights remain in effect even when protesting?
The president supports the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely. There has been no greater supporter or defender of the right to bear arms than President Donald J. Trump. So while Americans have a constitutional right to bear arms, Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede lawful immigration enforcement operations. And any gun owner knows that when you are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the assumption of risk and the risk of force being used against you. And again, that's unfortunately what took place on Saturday.
And yet, if you listen to the Democrats and you listen to the protesters, who I'm sure are Democrats, at least most of them, 999%, it's like it was murder, it was slaughter, it was cold blood. Listen to Adam Schiff, Senator Adam Schiff, and the vitriol that he is spewing against our brave men and women in blue.
Well, first of all, it's up to the state and local governments how they decide to prioritize their law enforcement. If they make the decision, we're going to prioritize going after violent criminals, it is not up to the federal government to say, no, you won't. You're going to help us with massive ICE raids in urban centers, going after people who are simply undocumented and have no other criminal record. The federal government may make that poor policy decision, may violate the president's promises to go after violent criminals, but they do not have the right to coerce states and local governments into essentially becoming an arm of federal immigration enforcement. So he's flat wrong about that. And what's more, for him to blame the cities and blame the states for flooding the streets of America with thousands of poorly trained agents who are shooting Americans in cold blood in the street and through windshields is despicable. What the American people have seen is horrifying.
That's an incredible statement. They're poorly trained and they're like, what, going around like they're in a shooting gallery on American streets? No wonder some of these protesters feel so emboldened to go right up to the face of law enforcement and push them or shout at them or spit at them, break into the hotel where they're sleeping. Sadly, the list goes on and on. And not to be outdone, Whoopi Goldberg on The View had her opinion, and of course she rushed to judgment against law enforcement.
They murdered a man. He is standing, he has his phone, and he has a bottle of water, and they shot him 10 times. What the? I don't know what you're investigating if you're not investigating the straight up murder. The straight up murder. This is the second one. The second murder of an American citizen who is doing what they are. You haven't gotten rid of the Bill of Rights yet. So people don't know that we're not supposed to go out and do this. So I don't understand what you're investigating. You see it. You're not blind. And if you don't see it, it's willful. Because you're not looking. You can't sit by this. Christy Noem, you can't justify this. Mr. what is his? I don't want to know. Mr. Bovino, you can't justify this. You can't justify either one.
No.
And we all see it. And we see you for what you are. You all have blood on your hands.
That's amazing. You all have blood on your hands. It is, quote, straight up murder. They are revving the crowd up irresponsibly to where they feel emboldened to go over and push a law enforcement officer, where they feel emboldened to interject themselves into an arrest, where they feel emboldened to maybe, like, if it looks like to me on the video, Renee Good trying to run over the law enforcement officer, trying to steer right in front of him and step on it. I mean, they certainly don't get this idea out of anywhere, out of some thin air process. They're hearing the rhetoric from their leaders who are saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. And they're following orders. And many of them are getting paid. I don't know if Renee Good or Alex Pretti, any of those guys, but a lot of them are clearly getting paid. That is for sure. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Jerry in New Jersey on line 5. Jerry, your thoughts tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to make 2 quick points. First, I'd like to say that Miss Good, she should have waited. If she had a problem with it wasn't a lawful order, her and her wife should have said the proper time to look at that would be review it with a judge. You never make those kind of decisions during a police stop when they asked her to get out. And the other guy who shows up with a gun, Pretti, what he should know to do is say, I am armed legally, and here's where my gun is, as he approached them. He should have pulled it up, and he should have said, his hands up and said, I want you to know I'm armed. I'm legally armed, with his hands up.
Yeah, legally, by the way, should be the first thing as opposed to I'm armed. Because if you go to in that situation, if you go I'm armed, that might escalate things.
No, you're correct. But he should have said to himself not to bring his gun. But if he was going to bring his gun and say, okay, I'm going to bring my gun because I'm definitely have a right to do this, then he should hold his hands up high in the air and have his gun showing. And he should just be saying, he's stupid to bring his gun, obviously. But if he's going to do that, and he has to be hard-headed and do that, then he should do it properly and say, I am armed. I'm legally armed. You see how crazy it is doing this even? But I'm legally armed and my hands are up. I mean, that's the only way you can even do it. So I'm very annoyed at the center right and right wing people who are gun people who are saying he has a right to have that gun and everything. He did it all wrong, obviously. He shouldn't really show up with the gun, obviously, but he did it wrong, even if he has to show up with his gun.
But Jerry, it's not just the showing up. When I looked at the video, and I'm not saying it justifies the death. They're two separate things. But let's get to the heart of it. You see this woman, it looks like, or somebody, it's a guy or woman looks like is about a protester being pushed because that person was interfering with law enforcement. So then he looks like he's coming to the aid of the person who was pushed. And then he gets in and interjects himself with law enforcement. You don't interject yourself with law enforcement. If law enforcement is doing an operation, you say, I'm going to stand back. But he got right in their face and he pushed them, it looks like to me, and then also is holding his video camera and in their face. So even whether he's armed or not armed, even at that point, I believe, and many law enforcement, I think almost every law enforcement person will say he crossed the line. That line was crossed. And then, like you just said, which is a great point, Jerry, because that gun makes it 10 times more risky. The minute suddenly you got a guy who's getting in the face of law enforcement, interjecting himself, you don't know if he has one gun. You don't know if he has 2 or 3 guns. You don't know what he's doing. I mean, you don't even want to walk over. You should just not even walk over. You let law enforcement do their job. It's not that difficult. But for some reason, these protesters, it has become that because they feel emboldened. Final thoughts, Jerry?
Just that we cannot allow President Trump should never, and I hope he doesn't, give 1 inch to these people. We have to the protesters, to the communists, and to the rest of the group, the Democratic Communist Party, I would call them. We cannot give them an inch. We have to double down, triple down, quadruple down on what they're doing. Trump has to go full steam ahead, because if he gives up on this, then we might as well just put Harris in office right now and AOC and the communists in office.
Well, and Jerry, by the way, more than that, if he gives up, he's giving up on American cities, because then do you want to have lawlessness like you're seeing there? Not just in Minneapolis, other cities are going to feel emboldened too. And that's why I agree with you. He cannot let up. He can tweak, he can make changes, but he shouldn't withdraw. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue after the break, guys.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's the perfect time to replace that beast in your basement, your old inefficient boiler, with a highly efficient Peerless boiler. Peerless boilers, they're a perfect match for homes, apartments, commercial buildings, you name it. Get the heat and hot water you need efficiently and save big on your energy bill all year long. Learn more about the entire Peerless Boilers family of products, and to find a local installer near you, visit peerlessboilers.com. And remember, my guy Pete Morgan, Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers, peerlessboilers.com.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's continue with your calls, guys. Let's go to Gennaro in New York, line 2. Go ahead, Gennaro.
Rita, I could tell you horror stories about some of the doctors and nurses at the VA hospitals.
But wait, Gennaro, focus on this first. Really quick. What's your reaction to the shooting in Minneapolis?
Of course it's sad, but you don't bring a machine gun to an alleged peaceful protest. And I'm in a basement apartment in Greenwich Village, and I don't know if I have pneumonia, but I don't go to the VA hospital, and it's $2,000 a month. What is Madami doing to help the veterans, the moron that he is?
By the way, Gennaro, I hear what you're saying, too, and my heart breaks as you are talking about veterans. Make sure you stay safe. You're right, it is so cold, and we're thinking of you.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Harbor Springs, Michigan, where an off-duty state police sergeant was at the right place at the right time as he jumped into action on a cross-country ski trail. Sergeant Dennis Wagner of the Michigan State Police's location said that while he was cross-country skiing, he came across a collapsed skier and he began administering life-saving care. That sergeant assisted by rolling the subject over, positioning his head uphill, opening the airway, and initiating chest compressions and alerting also the ski patrol. So they came, safely transported the subject into a toboggan, and then he regained pulse and was breathing before being even transported to the hospital. Police are saying that subject, the skier, is now awake. He's doing well, and he is expected to make a full recovery. And thank goodness, Sergeant Dennis Wagner there of the Michigan State Police just happened to be off duty and was there right at the right time. He certainly is an angel looking over that skier. Well, tonight, some more rhetoric coming from Tim Walz. It's unclear what's going on and where things are going, because we know that tomorrow, Border Czar Tom Homan is going to be arriving in a very chaotic situation there in Minneapolis. I'm happy that President Trump and the governor spoke, and I'm happy with this new news that the president apparently spoke to the Minnesota mayor, Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, too, trying to calm things down. It seems like the president has been very measured, saying, let's investigate this case. We don't even know who fired the first shot. We don't know, again, if the gun discharged. We don't know if somebody shot at the guy, shot him initially. It's very confusing. We do know that there were people on the ground, and there was an officer who said, he has a gun, he has a gun, he has a gun. And then this was a guy, you see him in the video, he goes over to officers trying to break up them talking to and pushing another protester. So he inserts himself, and then he's got a gun on him. And it turns out not just a gun, he has a loaded gun, and he has 2 other magazines full of bullets. Now, yes, he was allowed to have a gun, but I don't think it's a smart idea that you bring a gun to a very dangerous and very chaotic protest. I'm sorry. You know what? You don't do things that inflame the situation, and you don't insert yourself with law enforcement. And then in the moment, you don't know. And law enforcement is dealing with so many things right now. They're getting so many attacks at him from all different directions. They don't know if he has another gun. They don't know how many guns. They don't know what his intention is with the gun. There are so many questions tonight, and I can't wait as we hear more in this case, because it is an important case. And I hope that when we see the body cam footage, we are being told that there are reports there is some body cam footage. So apparently they are investigating the body cam footage. Let's see what it is. Let's see what it says. Let's see what it shows. All I can tell you is courts can definitely side with law enforcement if they believe that the officers felt they were truly in danger. If they believe that even if it was a mistake to fire the gun at this guy, but that they had reasonable suspicion based on his actions, based on the moment, based on a lot of things. There are many things at play here, guys. State of mind of the officers is critical. And certainly Tim Walz and Jacob Frey and many of those politicians in Minnesota should be ashamed of themselves for inflaming the situation as they have done from the very, very start. So tonight, Tim Walz puts out a statement saying ICE's assault is an un-American illegal chaos. That's Tim Walz's comment. Trump's ICE assault is un-American illegal chaos. And couple that with what he said about a day ago, comparing ICE and the way they handle illegal immigrants and others to Anne Frank in World War II, that courageous young girl who hid in her attic with her family until she was murdered. Listen to this.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota.
That's disgusting. To say that these ICE officers who are dealing with the most extremely difficult situation, that they're like Gestapo. I mean, that they got to look over their shoulders. They're being doxxed. They're being harassed. I mean, this is really unbelievable moment in America. And it breaks my heart when I'm seeing these images of America, you guys, of Minneapolis. It absolutely breaks my heart. This is horrible and it's terrible and it needs to stop. And I'm hoping that Tom Homan, when he gets there to the ground tomorrow, that cooler heads will prevail and that he can give a big wake-up call, especially to the Minneapolis leaders whose climate of encouraging and emboldening these protesters, I believe, has played a role. And here's what, by the way, the Holocaust Museum rebuked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz for drawing this parallel between the horrors that Anne Frank chronicled during Nazi occupation and President Trump's immigration crackdown in Minnesota, saying, quote, Anne Frank was targeted and murdered solely because she was Jewish, the museum says. Leaders making false equivalencies to her experience for political purposes is never acceptable. Despite tensions in Minneapolis, the museum says, exploiting the Holocaust is deeply offensive, especially as anti-Semitism surges. Bravo to them for speaking out and condemning. I hate when I see many Democrats using loosely the phrase Gestapo, using loosely the phrase Holocaust, using loosely the name of the great hero, Anne Frank. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in line one. Go ahead, Robert, your thoughts tonight.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Rita. So, Alex Jeffrey Pretti, he worked in Minneapolis, the Veterans Medical Center in Minneapolis.
Yep.
He worked there for about 10 years as an ICU nurse. And father, Harry Tasto, who was a chaplain, worked with him for about 10 years. And he testified how kind he was. And people talked about his great work ethic and how gentle he was with the patients and how wonderful he was. You know, he was never has a clean record.
It is. It's terrible. That's why I say to you, it's very sad, Robert. There's no question. It's horrible. I've heard a lot of great things about this man. It's tragic.
Like Florence Nightingale. Now, the thing is now, there was a very, Good Morning America had Aaron Katursky. He's the chief investigative.
Yep, I know Aaron. Go ahead.
Well, you got to look at his video. He put together a video compilation with analysis. He went in-depth analysis of it. It was about a couple of minutes. You got to look at the video. And I first of all, I want to take issue with Whoopi Goldberg because these people who condemn, I'm not saying I disagree with Whoopi, but what I'm going to say is that I disagree.
Robert, stop right there. I disagree with Whoopi. I think what she said is reprehensible. Saying it's straight up murder. You have blood on your hands, these officers. I mean, that is so inappropriate at a time where law enforcement's under attack. Now, I want to go back, actually, Robert. Let's go back to what you said about Aaron. I haven't seen what Aaron put up. What are the videos showing that Aaron says and that you see? Because I've seen a lot of them.
Well, wait, just one second.
No, hang on. I asked you. No, hold on. It's my show, so let me ask you. We'll get to the other point next, but let's first go to that point. What did the video show that Aaron Katursky showed?
Okay, well, his video is excellent, and basically what happened was you had the nurse, Pretti, Alex Pretti. He was holding a video camera. He was basically videotaping the interactions that were taking place with the ICE agents and the people. And what happened was there was like some bystanders. There was an interaction with the agents, the federal agents, and some bystanders got pushed back. And the bystanders slash possibly professional agitators, protesters. But go ahead. Right. Somehow, one of the bystanders got entangled with the nurse, with Alex Pretti. They got it sort of entangled, and he's holding up. He's trying to film the stuff, so he's a little bit like a journalist because he's trying to record what's taking place. And somehow, in the entanglement, the next thing is that somehow the officer is then pepper spraying him, the nurse. He's holding up like one hand to block the pepper spray, and the other hand he has his phone. And then the next thing you know is that he's sort of down on the ground. You have all these agents on top of him. And then the next thing you know is that you have one of the agents apparently takes out Pretti's gun, which he was licensed to carry. He took the gun out, so he moved the gun. And the next thing you know, apparently someone shot, at least it seems like it was a law enforcement agent who made the first shot, who shot Pretti.
All right, so Robert, I hear all this. So now we got it. Let's go through this, okay? First off, you make it sound like he happened to be tiptoeing through the tulips and just got pushed. He was very much upset at ICE in Minneapolis, has come out apparently, according to reports, to protest before. So he's an anti-ICE protester. There's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed free speech, America. I don't mind, I don't like it, but it is free speech, But that's different than getting involved. And if you look at some of the videos, he interjects himself. That's what many people see in the videos, that he interjects himself. So if you interject yourself and you're showing a camera and you're getting in their face and kind of push with law enforcement, at that point, you put the camera down and say, officers, so sorry, I bumped into you and got involved. And that's when you, first of all, you don't bring a loaded gun to an incendiary protest. I mean, all these protests, and I haven't seen a peaceful protest in Minneapolis on video for quite some time. And I tell you that because they look so out of control and they're screaming and spitting, every single one. I'm not saying everybody in these protests because not everybody is, but a lot of people that are on the front lines clearly are out to get law enforcement. They hate them. They wish the worst of the worst for them. They're throwing bottles of iced water, frozen water in their heads, which is a deadly weapon. They're spitting on them. They're trying to drive them over. They're screaming at them, and they're blocking the roadway so they can't get through. They're doing a whole bunch of things. They go to their hotel and they're trying to break in. What would they do if they got into the hotel room? What do you think might have happened if maybe 20 or 30 really riled up agitators broke into and got into the hotel? Thank goodness they were stopped both times, but they trashed the hotel. What do you think? They were there to have tea with them? Wake up, Robert. What do you think?
Well, no, 1 second.
No, 1 second, Robert. Don't you think? What do you think if they got into one of the rooms of those law enforcement? The only reason they didn't is, thank goodness, there were other agents downstairs blocking them. And if you look at some of the videotape, in those encounters, you'll see also, by the way, you'll see these feds going, where's the police? Don't the police care about a break-in at a hotel? I know they don't want to protect ICE, or they can't, I should say, because I think they want to, but they're told they can't that's the sanctuary, quote, city by Governor. What do you think was going to happen? That is an important question to ask you, because that's what's happened. They are staking, they are stalking, and they are going after law enforcement. I'm not saying, again, Alex Pretti deserved to die. We don't know what happened, and we need to see. But you make it sound like he just sort of stumbled on the scene, and you don't bring a loaded gun to a loaded protest.
Well, no, in many cases, this is like the Ashley Babbitt case. It's a very similar situation. And
Actually, it's not, because the officer there was trigger happy. And I haven't heard evidence that these officers, maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they thought he was shooting at them in the heat of the moment. But the other guy, the allegation is he had a lot of problems being a little fast on the trigger. And then he got promoted afterwards. So that's a little different. But go ahead.
Well, Rita, look, in my opinion, this was an angelic nurse. I think you're defaming him. And
no, I'm actually not. Robert, you have got to be kidding me. He slaughtered. Robert, shame on you. You know what? I am absolutely not. Because first of all, this guy, I've even said, I don't think he deserved to die. I don't like that idea that he passed. And what he did was amazing in his life. I mean, obviously, he was doing some really extraordinary things. But you make it sound like he didn't do anything that could have been prevented to make this situation de-escalate, as opposed to him escalating the situation. There are people who see that video, who see a guy who's totally interjecting. He's filming, he's screaming, he's getting in front of them. And then the next thing, and he's got a loaded gun. You have to admit, it's not a smart choice to bring a loaded gun. What if the agitators knocked him to the ground? What if a group of agitators knocked him to the ground and grabbed his gun, and shot him or somebody else? You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that can happen in the heat of the moment. I'm not at this point. We don't know what happened. So I hear you that we need to investigate it. So let me ask you, Robert, don't you understand that do you agree it wasn't a wise move to bring a loaded gun to a very chaotic situation, which it is in Minneapolis right now?
The NRA and Guns America.
He has a right to have it.
The Second Amendment.
Robert, having a right to the gun is different than making a wise choice. He absolutely has a right. He had a license to carry. There is no question about that. And this man, what he was doing for a profession, bravo. There's no question. But there are a lot of these protesters out there, and I don't know what's in the guy's heart. I have no idea. But you could see the moment that he interjects himself, and interjecting and carrying a loaded gun is not a wise or good choice. That doesn't mean by any means he deserved to die. But I'm just saying you have to get into the mind of what was happening at the moment. Robert, I'm going to go to a commercial break, and I'm going to have you afterwards. I want to see if you get some voice of reason when we get back.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, let's go back to Robert now that he had a little mental break. Me too. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Robert on line one. All right, Robert, round two. Go ahead.
Well, I call balls and strikes consistently. Ashley Babbitt was horrible what law enforcement did to Ashley Babbitt. And what happened to this nurse who was like Florence Nightingale, what they did to him, that was also seems to be horrible. All you got to do is look at Aaron Katursky's video analysis. Also, apparently there was a physician who he said that after he was shot, the nurse, they were not doing CPR, and then it was difficult for him to get to do CPR. But I will agree with you about one thing. There was an agent who had his finger, a federal agent had his finger was bitten off. That is horrific. That is criminal, horrible what was done to that agent. He had his finger, a piece of it was bitten off. Apparently he's going to lose his finger. So that much I'll agree with you about. But two wrongs don't make a right.
No, and by the way, I hear what you're saying on the two wrongs. Now, let's get to, you talked about they didn't do CPR. Officials on the scene dispute that. So again, we'll see what the truth is. Let's see, there's obviously two sides to every story. Also, we're hearing that there's some body cam footage that I think will be powerful. And at the end of the day, it very well may have been a mistake by law enforcement. I'm just telling you the moment, too, that, for these people to come out and say it's cold-blooded murder, they're making it sound like Whoopi Goldberg, who you said you agree with in this case, like they're going around and like at the OK Corral and shooting people. I mean, that is clearly not the case. It's not like they go out there and say, I want to go out and shoot somebody today, and in that heat of the moment when they're being, approached, and then you find out the person who's getting in their face has a gun, things can often get confusing. I'm not justifying what happened, but I am explaining what happened. Final thoughts.
Well, Whoopi Goldberg is a hypocrite because Ashley Babbitt, I don't think people like that ever had any sympathy for Ashley Babbitt. They're total hypocrites.
I agree because I think I didn't hear her have any sympathy. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear that. And obviously what happened to her was terrible. And obviously what happened to Alex Pretti is absolutely terrible.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
It's the perfect time to replace that beast in your basement, your old inefficient boiler, with a highly efficient Peerless boiler. Peerless boilers, they're a perfect match for homes, apartments, commercial buildings, you name it. Get the heat and hot water you need efficiently and save big on your energy bill all year long. Learn more about the entire Peerless Boilers family of products, and to find a local installer near you, visit peerlessboilers.com. And remember, my guy Pete Morgan, Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers, peerlessboilers.com.